Leaving room for intro, probably, if I have an intro. We're live! Hi guys! Welcome back to Nina's Network Podcast, doing our Wanderlust series. And I'm here today with Spencer. Spencer has been here before. Hi guys!
Hey everyone, it's good to be back.
It's good to see you guys. It's good to see you, Spencer. It's been a little while. Hopefully everything has been all right. Want to give us any updates and whatnot?
Well, things have been wonderful in my personal life. Pretty calm. Busy at the same time, but nothing that big. But what I do want to say is, not only am I going to be going on a massive trip next year across the entirety of summer, I will also be writing a book.
Oh, we love to hear updates. Awesome.
So, how much of the book I've done? Nothing yet. But I do have a title, which is pretty fitting actually for what I'm going to be doing. Amsterdam to Istanbul.
I love that. That's going to be so cool. I know Spencer behind the scenes has been telling me a little bit about what the book is going to be about, so I'm really excited. He might give us a little sneak peek in today's podcast topics, but I am excited to hear the good news. Before we get started, though, with today's podcast, today we're going to be talking a lot about cultural elements, holidays, seasons, traditions, things like that. But let me do a quick shout out to WXOU station here at Oakland University, and another big shout out to Student Video Productions for letting us use this wonderful equipment that we have here today. And with all of that, let's get started in today's episode. So it's been a little bit, it's been a little while since Spencer has been on here. It's been a while since I've been on here. And as we're recording this, I don't know when it's being released, but as we're recording this, we are getting close to like holiday season, getting ready to start some of those big traditions with family and things like that. So in terms of travel culture, we kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit, share what those experiences were like indulging in family and cultural things from home, but in relation to traveling, in what that looks like when you are traveling, but you still miss your cultural things that you do at home. Yeah. Like Spencer, what was it like for you when you were abroad and, you wanted to like just see what some of the traditions was like there?
Well, generally, so we're talking about cultural traditions or cultural traditions in general, right? Mm-hmm. So a big thing where I was in Catalonia was it's very much its own culture, definitely not the same as Castilian or Andalusian. The majority Spanish cultures. It's very much its own thing.
Yeah.
So big traditions there are often, well, they're much the same as any other Mediterranean nation. Families stay together, they live together, work together, hell, they even die together sometimes. But it is, like, family meals are a big thing because a lot of these nations, a lot of people seem to have a misconception here that, everyone in Europe is rich. But a lot of people actually the national wages of every country besides Switzerland and Luxembourg pretty much and Norway are going to be lower than the American wage.
Yeah, I can believe that.
A lot of these countries a lot of these people do have to make more with less.
Mm-hmm.
So a big part of that has been the family dynamic, family meals, family housing.
Yeah, living together, being together.
Exactly, because you save so much money when you have a family working together.
That is true. Yeah, I can believe that. I think a lot of the times that when I travel, especially in different households, I realize that a lot of people have emphasis on doing smaller things with their families. Like, I think my family, we're a little interesting. Like, I don't think we do as much as we used to. Granted, that might be due to like the pandemic and trying to, spend more time together with your family. But I realize that dynamic is kind of similar to a lot of other people, especially out of the country. They try to put an emphasis on family traditions, being together around holiday times, and just seeing what that element is like is always been interesting for me. I don't think as an American I have
to that
extent.
No, it's definitely an American thing because I mean, think about it. Like, Americans don't cook anymore.
Right, we really don't. Like, if you want to get a turkey, you can just go to the grocery store and there will be one already pre-made.
Close, but what I was more getting at is the fact that we literally don't cook. People don't cook anymore. And I think it's because there's just a lack of a family cooking tradition.
That is true. Like,
sometimes, I mean, it used to be one. You know, if you read old cookbooks, you'd see families would have Sunday roasts and dinners all throughout the week. But I guess around the time probably that a lot of and this is a bit of tangent, but around the time we had a lot of pre-packaged food, both parents entered the workplace. You know, a lot of things like that kind of contributed to us not having family meals anymore.
Right. And then when you also think about the fact that we don't have a kind of think about like American traditional holiday food. On Thanksgiving, you have a turkey. On Christmas, you might have a ham. You know, like, I think other cultures,
many dishes.
Yeah, there's not very many dishes. And on top of that, people, I think, feel less inclined to go through the work of putting the effort into making those dishes anymore because they're already pre-made.
Yeah, I think this is a really recent thing too, because people have just gotten busier. Like
that too, yeah.
Even like back in the 2000s, I can distinctly remember, like, for Christmas holiday, Thanksgiving, or even like Easter, you would definitely have like 5-6 different dishes.
Right, exactly. You'd have a spread of dinners.
They would bring, each would bring 2-3 dishes.
It'd be a big potluck. People would just be eating and having a good time. I can't even remember the last time I've done that.
You can't. You got to work like 8 hours, and you can put in 2 hours of extra work in every day because you got to respond to emails or go do something. And at that point, you may as well just pick up a meal from KFC.
Right? Like, Spencer and I were talking about this earlier, and this might have to do a little bit with like cultural dynamics with just how it is in business culture, I want to say. But I was, outside of the podcast, I was talking to Spencer how I've recently acquired a new job. And I was telling him, like, I was like, I'm finally being part of the American system. I'm going to have a typical 9 to 5, which is going to leave less room to travel for me. But when I really think about it, that's going to leave a lot of less room to do anything in American society. You have a 9 to 5 in America, you probably are missing a lot of holiday events. You might have to work that day because America tries to incentivize that, if you do work on this day, you'll get overtime. If you work on this day, you'll get triple time, double time pay. And you think about it, those are times you are missing with family, and they're trying to say, well, if we pay you more, eventually you'll get time to spend with your family, but it won't be on this holiday.
I also think that this is also another recent thing, because I remember, like, even my father, he used to work a lot of hours when I was younger.
Yeah.
And he still had plenty of time. There's still time. Like, the second he was home, that was it. He was home. I mean, you probably remember the same thing, right? I mean, when your mom was my substitute teacher, even then, like, when she was a teacher, she was busy. She still had time when she came home.
That is true. Like, yeah. I think about the difference between my mom and my dad. I'm getting ready to finally move out of my home and start living life, I guess, adulting. But when I'm usually home, my dad works really long hours. He has to get up at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning just to come back home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a long shift. And granted, he still gets home kind of early and tries to spend time with us and do different things with us. But if you think about how long those hours are just to get a short amount of time with your family, it's just so frustrating. American culture with these traditions and how they want to basically, we're a country of greed. They're like, if we give you more money, that's more money for the economy, more money for you, more work that you're putting into keeping us alive, but you don't get to spend time with your family. No.
Yeah, I mean, to a greater or lesser degree, that is also how things are done. I mean, especially in Japan, like, we think our work culture is bad.
Yeah, over there it's, oh Lord, they're
expected to have exactly 2 hours of home time.
Yeah, like, they're like, okay, so you're gonna go home for a couple hours, but then you're gonna come back. And they have even systems set up where you live at work. You literally leave your job, you go to sleep on maybe a little community bed, and then you go back to work. And that's not even cutting into the nitty gritty of what it might be working at like a sweatshop in a different country, making couple cents every hour. It's tiring, it's difficult, it's terrible.
Yeah, well, what I think it is really, it's about how you escape it that really separates cultures, because everyone works, hard work is an important value in pretty much every culture. And the cultures that's not an important value in are the cultures that tend to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to everyone works hard, it's really about how you let go. And I mean, personally here, it's kind of hard to just let go. Everyone's simultaneously. I like to say that America has a definite cultural aspect where there's things that are kind of allowed, but also not. One of those things is kind of letting go and enjoying yourself.
I can agree with that. I think the interesting idea with American culture with things like that is it's kind of like everybody's in a similar boat, I think, when it comes to the work ethic, the work culture. But I think there's always a small part where it's like I can escape whenever like I can leave today. I think Americans are like, I don't want to work this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Whereas maybe an older generation feels that they have more of like, I have to do this to provide for my family. Even as much as I don't want to do this, I have to do it because I want a better life for my kids so they can experience things and they can do that. But it still kind of falls in like a similar pattern even.
Yeah, and it did used to be easier. I mean, hell, even back in the 50s, it was a common thing for any worker who made like $1 above minimum wage back then would have like a month. You know, they go to a resort upstate.
Yeah, to relax and do whatever they want.
Yeah, you don't have that anymore.
Wait,
People
no.
are even reluctant to take paid time off that they earned.
Literally, like time that they had literally earned from working so much that they can't use. That's so frustrating.
Yeah, we work ourselves to the bone and die of a heart attack at 68 right after we retire at 65.
It's crazy. Thinking about it, it's so frustrating. Thinking about being an adult is already making me go like, oh, should I have done it? Should I?
So when it comes to a lot of other nations, like I spent most of my time in the Caribbean, and I can definitely tell you, the work hours are the same. You know, they'll work from sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
But do you want to know how they let go after a nice long day of work? They go see their buddies. They walk down the road, have a couple of beers. They enjoy this Caribbean sunset. Or they spend time with family. They enjoy a meal together. Because, I mean, when you're on an island, you kind of have to have a close-knit community.
That is true. There isn't many people there, so you want to make sure that you guys are all getting to know each other.
Yeah, so even if you don't like everyone you're around on the island, you can always have a community.
Yeah.
And if at the very least your family, your friends, people you work with. So definitely that's why if you ever gone to the Caribbean on a vacation, they just leave all their work at work and then they just enjoy the rest of their night.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think you have to in times like that. But even here, I would say that we kind of build our own communities in a way because I think you kind of have to. Like there's how do I put it? I think with the way our work culture is currently, I think we have to have some sort of escape. Like I think about Japan and their work culture. It's so crazy because they'll spend these hours and hours working, and then part of their culture is to drink with your superiors.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not even like I guess in a way it's supposed to be fun, but you know, to try to get people, you know, loose and enjoying the community of the workspace. But even in some instances, there's fear amongst that. There's people, if you're, if you're not as high up in the company, your job is to pour glasses for everyone. You're supposed to stay the longest to attend to the drunk people because you are under them. Like, isn't that sad? Like, it's a fun activity, so then turns into a work activity.
I mean, yeah. You know, what is it? Confucianism originated in China, but Japan certainly perfected it.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's definitely
how the societal doctrines work. I also think that, although even then, like, people are still less stressed about work. Relatively speaking, what I've seen, because they can go out and party, and it's accepted that they can just release all the stress they go through at work.
That is true. I think people drink themselves to death because it's like only escape sometimes. I think, especially when the workload is so stressful, it's kind of like being able to go drink or spend time with your community, or even the small amount of time you do get with family. It's like you have to do it because you know you're gonna have to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah, but I definitely think there's just inherent differences in how work cultures are. Like in Europe, despite like contrary belief, you know, you'd think like you always hear, oh, the Germans are the hardest working. Germans are the hardest working. It's actually Germans work the least hours.
That's what I hear. Germans work literally the least amount of hours.
They do. They work the least hours per week. In fact, in Spain, I believe it's the third most hours, and Greece is the first most hours.
Wow.
And Greece doesn't technically have an economy right now. So.
Right. Yeah, they're going through some things. Yeah. But in Germany, they have a very, at least what I've heard, they have a very refreshing, I don't even think that's the word. They have a good work culture for their people. Like they make it so it's not some sort of like, you gotta do this, you have to do this. They even cut back their work hour days to make it easier. Hard. Yeah, you're working hard, but you don't have to spend hours to work hard. You should be able to get your work done in a small amount of time, so then you will have time to do the things that you worked your hard money to do for.
It's efficient. It's
very efficient. It's lovely.
Yeah, even then we still work ton of hours here. We're not efficient about it. Everyone spends like half their time dawdling on the internet.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a consequence of a work ethic. It's more a consequence of you have to be at a workplace for, let's be honest, it's 9.5 hours. Because like
exactly.
45 minutes in the morning, you gotta get ready and do everything. 45 minutes, you gotta get everything ready to leave.
You get stuck in rush hour traffic on the way home.
Yeah, so it's really also just more about when you're abroad, you start to see why most cultures are less stressed than us, because they have those dynamics. They have the social dynamics, the family dynamics that they get to enjoy. They get to let loose a little bit more.
Yeah, I was watching. This is slightly off topic, but still on topic. I was watching a video today of a woman in Japan, and she has she's a black woman who got married to a Japanese man, and she had a daughter abroad. She's been living in Japan for a couple years now, and she had like a video vlog of like what her life is like since moving with her husband, having a baby, and what she does on a day-to-day life. And like I watch her and I just think like she's so excited. She's just like, yeah, I live my life as like a housewife. I cook for my husband. You know, I don't have to work because as a woman, you know, they don't necessarily feel like I have to work in my society. And she's like, all I do is care for my child, and I'm so happy. And I just watch that and I'm like, would I be happy? Would I be happier if I was in Japan having a baby, not having to feel like I need to work all the time? And like it's similar in other countries, feeling like women don't necessarily have to work in other places. And
I mean, look, I believe in, you know, women's right to work as much as anyone else.
Oh yeah, of course.
I do personally think that the mother of the household has kind of screwed up that whole family dynamic.
It does, yes.
Because back in the day, you know, it's 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s even, there was a grandma, there was a mom, maybe an aunt who'd visit every other day or so. You know, there's always a female figure kind of in the there's always
in the
someone
picture
helping out. You know, it's less stressful. Like, you know, if the grandma, you know, takes care of the kids, and the mom does this,
right?
And dad's at work.
It works for everybody, you know. And then even when the dad's at work, you know, he doesn't have to worry because you have the grandma cooking dinner, you have the mom taking care of the baby, you have the kids running around, you know.
I think that's where this modern day dissatisfaction also started. And again, when you travel, like when you get to travel with family, it's so much fun.
It is.
And another thing
it's so lovely.
Is that it sucks that in a travel culture with families is so much bigger than the rest of the world. Like they'll let their
that is true. Yes, they'll
travel.
let their kids travel to crazy destinations.
Yeah, and do you want to know what they do here? They freak out because the news media tells us that going anywhere outside of maybe Canada
literally will get you killed.
Or at least they make it seem like it. It's like, hey, terrorist attack here, terrorist attack there.
Right.
And everyone's scared. My parents are scared of me traveling to Germany.
Oh my
Or not scared of me traveling to per se, but they're like, worried that, oh, what if something happens?
Yeah, my family's very similar. Like when I tell them about like, oh, I really want to go here, I want to go here, they're like, are you sure that's safe? You know, are you sure you want to go there? You need to do your research. That I don't know, that doesn't seem safe there. What is making America any safer? We are really on the top number of countries with the most deaths. Maybe not number one, but we're up there.
Yeah, you know, like most of the time when it comes to other countries, they'll be like, oh, this area is really bad. And they'll be like, oh, okay, so it's kind of overhyped to some degree.
Right.
Yeah, there's some areas that are bad, like Mogadishu, Somalia. Definitely
Yeah.
that bad. Other places are also that bad. Certain parts of Detroit.
Are that bad.
Yeah, like certain parts of big cities in America are literal no-go zones.
Literally, it's like, oh, Chicago, for instance. Oh, don't go to Chicago.
Yeah, there's like 8th Boulevard's really bad.
Literally anything past 63rd, like it's just it's terrible. But I think it's frustrating because some of those places, not necessarily the bad places, but some of those places have such a rich, authentic cultural elements to them that can be learned from that we don't have, or you might be able to find in just your home, in your hometown. I think the real whole reason I wanted to travel is because I live in the middle of nowhere. I've lived in the middle of nowhere for literally.
It's like one building taller than 40 feet there.
Exactly. Like what is going on in my hometown? Like we grow up knowing the same people. You grow up in farm fields and stuff. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to live on a farm, because I would really like to live on a farm one day.
I also think that isolation applies to people living in the cities, because cities here are so stratified. So
that's true. Yeah, they're very segregated in terms of how they're structured and how they're basically just what I guess counts as like a city element versus your suburb elements, your rural areas. It's interesting.
And also some states are just better than other states. Like Tennessee is such a good state. Have you ever been to
Yeah,
Tennessee?
I've been once, but not for long enough to really see like the things going
I've
around.
been to Tennessee so many times. It's such a good state. It's so fun.
I like the food. I'll say the food there was really good.
Like Tennessee, like New York.
Yep, New York.
Like there's just like we're in Michigan. Like there are so many better states in Michigan.
I know. Like I've been trying to go to Detroit a little more recently, just because.
Like I love going up north, because up north is incredible.
Yeah. Up north is beautiful. We have tons of beautiful things to
But then
see.
again, I could go to Montana and see
the same thing.
15 times better, you know?
Right.
Or like Wyoming and see the the national parks.
Right.
You know, there's something. Michigan's just there's. At one point, this was literally the richest state to live in.
And now,
The richest part of the world.
now they're literally getting ready to put an act in place to try to get more people to have babies, because Michigan's population is one of the lowest in America.
What is our current birth rate? Like 1.3?
It's very low. So I think
That's not a good thing.
Yeah, it's because I don't know why it's so low. It's probably because no one wants to live here.
Actually, speaking of birth rates, when we traveled abroad, we both went to countries with very low birth rates.
That is true.
And
yeah,
you see it. Like Spain has a
You
birth
can
rate of
see it.
1.3. Japan has a birth rate of 0.9. right?
Point nothing.
Like there's less than one child per 2 adults. That's not a good rate.
Right. But I think, I hate to say it, but it's because of the way the country is, in a way. Like, who wants to have a child in a place where I have to work my butt off every single day, that I basically have to pay a whole other person to raise my child for me?
Yeah.
It's
In
really
Spain,
stressful.
You have the time to raise a child, but there's just not enough money there.
There's not enough money to raise the child.
Yeah, especially given that everything's Eurovized, so all the prices are in euros.
Yeah,
It's still cheap. I mean, hell, when I was in Europe, I was even in Paris, and I was like, holy crap, this 12 euro drink is expensive. And everyone was, oh wait, that's like $15 US. I'd be paying $25
You'd be paying
in the US for the same drink.
Literally for the same thing.
Yeah, you realize like, oh, it's not even that expensive. But the resource difference is just such a big deal.
I completely agree. It's crazy.
Like again, in Japan, even if you're working hard, you still have more resource opportunity.
That is true. I think what's it called? Some countries have a lot more resources, but I think the reasons for their birth rate is that I think the system's a little skewed. Like for us in Michigan, what is, like, think about it. What is a reason why I might want to raise my child in Michigan? Because of the nature, how
That's gone downhill since we were kids.
Literally because of how open it is, and
everyone's angry nowadays. You can't really go out in public anymore.
Yeah.
Because everyone's gonna start like, I don't know. Everyone's gotta like watch each other nowadays.
That's what I'm saying. Like what? And
you know, when I was a kid in like the 2000s, I got lost at like a park once and I'm hanging out with a random kid. Our parents were like, "Oh, thank God you're here."
Right. Yeah.
Nowadays, they would have called like the SWAT team, the fire squad,
oh
police,
my gosh. Yep.
Like everyone's scared nowadays. Everyone's scared of each other.
I completely agree. Like
I don't like talking about politics, but I do think that everyone's just so divided politically nowadays.
That is another huge factor. I think the political system has a lot to do with what is happening in today's society.
Again, don't like to bring up politics, but I do think that there is some degree of that. But that is one thing I do notice. Like children are much more free in other countries because there's a bit higher trust in those societies.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Europe, I'd often see children taking the metro to their classes, their schools.
Yeah, like I've seen children walking literally in the dead of night, and these are babies. These are little kids that knew how to get to school, take the bus, get on the tram system, and still get to their destination. And like, granted, there are cases here and there, but to think that I would be able to trust that my child is going to maybe take a 4 mile journey over trains and walking system just to get home is just
no, that little sucker's getting kidnapped here.
Literally here, that kid would not make it. It wouldn't make it a mile.
50 feet,
yeah, it would not make it that far. That poor little kid. Oh, Lord.
I think that says more about American culture than it does about other cultures.
Other cultures, I agree. I would love for my child to have the safety to get around in a different environment. Like I wouldn't. It's hard to raise a kid here. We don't have the job resources. There's not a lot of opportunities here. There's not a lot of room for growth. People always start in a state, but they end up leaving because, like, for instance, Michigan, do you know how many rappers have said, oh yeah, I grew up in Detroit, I was raised in Detroit, but now live in LA.
The second Eminem made like $25,000.
He was out. He was out. I'm telling you, if I could be a rapper and make that much money, I wouldn't be living in Michigan either.
Oh, again, like I told about how much I love Tennessee. I would move to Tennessee.
Literally.
The Smoky Mountains are beautiful. It's warm there until like December, and it gets warm again like February.
Yeah. I would probably go to like Seattle or Washington or something. That's a place that is on my bucket list of places to go next year because
but they got really high taxes.
They do have really high taxes now, which is really unfortunate.
Idaho would be nice, but then you have to deal with the local population.
Yeah, I don't know if the population would love me.
You kind of stand out.
Yep, I kind of stand out. They would not love me over there. I might be a nice place to visit, but not a place for me to stay. Ooh. But I think like there's so many places that I could see that just would give me the resources and the opportunities of growth within my career, and even with what I want to do with my, future ideals like marriage and babies and stuff like that.
I ironically thought about not coming back.
Really?
I thought about maybe finding a job.
Just staying there. Shoot, I wouldn't blame you if I think I have too much ties here to America that would make me. Like, we should totally talk about that one of these days. Like, what would be my reasonings for leaving out of the country versus what are my reasons for staying?
It's just a tax thing. A big thing.
It is a big tax thing. And
our taxes are pretty good.
That is true. Our taxes
you do get a lot for your taxes.
Yeah, you really
Even if most of the money ends up funneled away, apparently going to, like, Social Security and Medicare, 66% of where the government spends its money on it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't actually see the benefits.
Yeah, that's true. It just sucks because in America, like, our taxes are supposed to be.
We're talking about politics.
I know. Like, why are we talking about politics? It's okay. We are getting right. We're literally getting ready to come up into a break. But sorry, we've rambled a little bit about American political and awful society ideals, but we'll come back and talk a little bit more back on holidays and traditional elements abroad after this little break. So we'll be right back. Hello, this is a message from today's sponsors, which I don't really think we have one. Instead, let me do a quick shout out to WXOU Radio and Student Video Productions for letting us use all of the wonderful equipment we have. Take this time to grab a snack, put on your favorite warm, fuzzy socks, and get ready to listen to me and Spencer talk more about travel.
If you're liking it so far, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow for more future updates on podcasts. Now back to the show.
Hi everyone, we are back. Sorry we hit that 30-minute mark pretty fast, so we're gonna jump right back into it. I think to get us started, we are going to talk a little bit about traveling culture. So we kind of touched a little bit about our thoughts on cultural elements since we're recording this around holiday time. So we wanted to just chat about that a little bit. We did get a little bit off track here and there. So we thought we'd just jump in and talk to you guys a little bit about what is it like to be a traveler versus just a person who wants to travel. What is the culture of traveling today? We are in a new era. We are getting ready to start 2024. It's going to be an interesting year. I think we're going to see a lot more people traveling this year for different reasons and whatever might come around with that. But what does that mean for travel? What is it like to travel in today's age?
So I think traveling in today's age is ironically both more open and more closed than it used to be in the past. Because back in the day, you might not even know every country on Earth, and for example, especially back during like the USSR, during the various, especially places like Africa and Southeast Asia, were not fun places to visit for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you travel to those places, holy shit.
Right, it's like, whoa, where did you go, man? You just fell off the planet.
Or like going to like Yugoslavia during the 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Like, you would have
People
been
were like,
foreigner
whoa.
there. You had to learn the language. English was not, English, it was a universal language.
Yeah.
At the very least, there would be one person who'd speak it.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, you could not rely on like the tourist industry existing in every country.
Right, there wasn't any sort of guidebook you could go to. It's like if you knew the language, that was the only way you're really going to.
You really traveled. You got
really travel. Like going to somewhere where you don't even know the language, but you are still trying to understand those elements. It's crazy.
Yeah, you at most, I mean, especially travel is also more expensive because you had to charter the plane ticket, and you would have to travel to a new destination and you had to get a visa and a passport. Traveling back then was so much different because you were kind of just stepping into the unknown.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, people were friendlier because travelers were rare. I mean, outside of maybe places like Paris and Rome, which had seen tourists for centuries, if you were, let's say I just decided to up and go to India back in the 1960s, outside of maybe some British citizens, there were almost no other travelers. That'd be unique. I would have to learn Hindi, Tamil, whatever the languages were.
It's crazy because if you think about that versus now, like I feel like anybody could really be a, I guess, traveler now. We have translating apps, we have guides, we have this. Like, what's stopping somebody from, I don't know, picking up a camera and going like, okay, today I'm going to, oh God, here I am knocking over. Like, okay, I'm in this country and I have this amount of money. I'm a traveler.
I think what really stops people nowadays is not only the fact that resources to make traveling a bit harder. I mean, there's a difference between how you have to save up nowadays versus how it used to be. But also, being a traveler nowadays it means taking time off from your life in a way that it didn't used to. There used to be time to travel, but nowadays, you gotta like separate yourself to really travel.
I agree. Like it's I feel like in today's society, like granted, I feel like this year, I think 2024 will be a big year for travel because we're getting a little farther from the days of the pandemic. I think a lot more people are going to be antsy and wanting to get out a little bit more, do the things that they weren't able to do before. Not saying that they didn't do them in 2023, but I think, it's still too close for comfort. I think this might be a change in that aspect, but I also feel like you do have to become a traveler, to be a traveler. You do have to put almost like the normal day-to-day life on hold to try to experience the world. Like, you can't have a 9-to-5 job and then also want to study abroad or travel abroad for months on end.
But that's when you become a traveler. It's when you make that jump. It's when you snip the cord. It's when you.
That is true. You snip the cord between life of the regular, the typical life and start anew, I guess.
Yeah, because there's a big difference between someone who goes on vacation every year and someone who goes to explore somewhere every year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where the traveler starts. When you see, why do you think the, why do you think like those doctors without borders types, the ones who go to conflict zones, they get addicted to it.
Yeah, that's
Like,
that's true.
yeah, they get addicted to being in a new place everywhere.
Yeah,
To
they get a
find
chance.
trade. That's what being a traveler is about. It's being addicted to seeing somewhere new. It's being addicted to meeting someone new. There's the best thing that you could ever read when it comes to travel was actually written in the 11th century by Ibn Battuta.
Mm.
He was this Moroccan noble who decided that he was going to explore the farthest reaches of the Islamic trading routes and learn about and detail these local cultures. He went from the empires of Ghana and Mali down the coast of Egypt and Nubia. It wasn't Sudan yet; it was still Nubia. To the Byzantine Empire, to Yemen and Iran and Pakistan, or at least Persia as it would have been then. Down through India and even all the way to Indonesia and Mongol-controlled China. He was able to document and explore, and he said that there was nothing like it. And he was traveling on boats, on camels, on horseback.
Wow.
Yeah,
Just to
if he could
experience the
travel,
culture.
if he could travel, so can you.
Right. If you can travel, yeah, anybody can travel at that point. I mean, I guess you're right. That is the thing about travel, being a traveler. It's the thrill of the chase. It's like I'm going to experience something that is going to change my life internally. But when you think about traveling, though, in terms of like, let's say a career or even like an everyday lifestyle, what do you think that means for a person? Like, you know how when you work, you do your 9 to 5 to get money or provide for your family. What do you think is the most fulfilling parts of becoming a traveler? Because when you think about it, most travelers aren't making a lot of money unless there's some sort of influencer nowadays, which is very typical nowadays. But there, as a traveler, you probably aren't going with your family. You're probably doing it solo, and you might not have a place to necessarily call home because the world is your home. So what makes that aspect of traveling, being a traveler, fulfilling?
I guess it's the same thing that made an adventurer back in the day. The idea that you can just end up somewhere new by your own will. I mean, it's really about getting to explore where you are and what you are. I think it's really the what that makes a traveler, because when I'm gonna do and what I saw a lot when I would do weekend trips in Europe was I'd be staying at these hostels and all these people would be like, yeah, I'm doing a backpacking trip. I'm going all the way down to the coast of Spain, or I'm going out and around down through Italy. What would really be the difference between a traveler like that and someone who's just a tourist is they want to make it their life's goal to see these places and to experience these cultures.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I feel like in those terms, it's almost like you have to realize that, like, here, let me think of it this way. In American culture, I think we are grown to be we're grown to learn the ideals of free will. We're raised to know the term of you can do anything. You can be anything.
Like have you ever seen A Fistful of Dollars? Like the cowboy.
Yeah,
the outlaw.
exactly.
That's the American hero for a reason.
Right.
There's nothing that can stop them from just taking their horse and going on to the next town.
Right. Do you think, because if you think about people from other countries, they want to come to America. I feel like a lot of people think of that, like, I can be anything, I can do anything, and I can make money doing it.
I think it's something that, even in our last discussion earlier, kind of got lost of how free, quote unquote, it is. It's rather less the freedom to do something and the freedom to consider anything.
Right, yes. I think that's such a great, like, idea.
There's societal pressure, but it's very easy to ignore.
Yes.
You don't have to conform to any societal pressure here.
Right. Like, I love the ideologies behind free will, because if you really think about it, nobody is telling you to do anything. But I think with travelers, you have to have an open mind on so many of these things, because you will probably end up in situations you never thought you would find yourself in. And you have to roll with it. There's going to be times where you don't understand the language. There's going to be times where you don't understand the cultural elements. But travelers find a way to adapt to those situations and enjoy them, to continue to see what else is out there.
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of experiences like that when I was in Spain, when I was traveling abroad. When I saw a new place, it was kind of like, for example, the first night that I was at the first weekend trip I did was to Valencia.
Yeah.
And the first night I just kind of didn't really know what to do. I was just wandering around like, oh, am I traveling now? Is this what traveling's all about? I'm going to see these cool places. And that was fun. And then I was like, I didn't meet anyone, didn't see anything. So I went up to my hostel. I was about to go to bed, and I was like, you know what? There's a common area upstairs. Why don't I just go check out what's happening? The whole group of Europeans was up there.
Just enjoying life.
Yeah, enjoying life,
being friendly.
And I was like, what's going on here? And they're like, hey, come, sit. And then we just all started talking. I ended up hanging out with these whole group of amazing people.
Oh, that's so
I ended
sweet.
up getting drunk, hanging out. And it's almost like the setup to a joke. But I ended up going to a 70s American themed nightclub with a black British guy, a Swiss
that's so
guy,
cool.
and 2 Germans.
What?
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm actually still friends with the British guy.
Really? You guys still talk?
Not really talk, but we still have each other on like Instagram.
Yeah, social media and stuff.
Yeah, like it was great meeting people like that, and we ended up like hanging out a couple nights as well. Oh, there's also a Japanese guy.
Oh, that's
During
cool.
COVID, he's like the one Japanese guy who got to travel abroad.
Oh, I love that. Oh, see, as someone who isn't super well traveled, except for maybe the United States, I think that's something I admire so much, because if I hopefully coming soon, I'll have the opportunity to travel abroad and do things of that nature. But I think that's the one thing that I want to make sure I do as a new traveler, is to make sure I try to get out of my element a little bit, talk to people I've never talked to, and embrace the strange experiences.
Exactly. And I went on like a free walking tour. I met a whole bunch of people through that. In Greece, I was just at my hostel after a stay of sightseeing at the Acropolis and the nearby parks.
Wow.
And I just walked in my hostel, and then the owners, who had actually met, great guys, they had lived in America, they're like, oh yes, come here, we love Americans.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, one
so
guy,
cute.
he offered to teach, like, tomorrow you are learning how to make tzatziki.
Oh, really? So they taught you?
No, unfortunately, I was like out busy during the day.
Ah,
But
darn.
they recommended the souvlaki place. That had the best. It was the best thing I ever ate. It was
Oh my
€2.
gosh.
It was the sandwich. It was delicious.
Really?
And they just told me to go there, yeah. And then guess what? I come back. And there's just and I'm like, I'll hang out in my common area. Maybe I'll meet someone new.
Oh my gosh.
And then there are these like 2 girls sitting there, and they were like, Spencer, come here, because they know my name. The owners they were talking with. Them.
Yeah.
And they're like, this girl, she speaks Spanish. And I was like, huh? Yeah, but es español. And she was like, hey, sí.
Oh,
She
so you
spoke
guys
better
are
Spanish than I
talking.
did, yeah.
Wow.
And she was apparently there as part of this. They have this program called Erasmus in Europe, where you can actually study in all these different countries.
Oh.
Yeah, these are like professional students, basically.
Really? You're gonna have to send me the link to that, because
It's only something for like EU citizens, though.
Oh, darn it.
Which sucked because it's such a cool
I wish we
trip.
had something like that here. Oh, I think they do have programs like that. That's something I really would like to research, is programs where you could study abroad, or even just go abroad with other people.
Like, I ended up just meeting all these people, but that was part of being a traveler, just going with the flow. I didn't plan for that to happen.
Yeah, and you embraced it,
Yeah,
the
the
experience.
more planned things were, when I started my trip in Barcelona, I planned like my hotel, I planned like what I was gonna do. I had way more fun just going by the seat of my pants.
Wow.
That's how I met people. That's how I had fun. That's how I ended up finding the coolest little bars.
Right? Like, oh, we're gonna have to do a podcast. Our next one has to be about food culture, because I feel like that is something we really could get in depth about.
Yeah, we gotta talk about that New Orleans trip. You did, 'cause
Literally,
that's the best food on the
we
planet.
gotta talk about food, because you just saying that made me think about how hungry I am right now.
Really, what it's about being a traveler is just being open to being spontaneous.
Yeah.
It's a spontaneity that everyone has within them. I don't think there's a single person who can't at least be a little bit spontaneous.
Now, I feel like one thing that we should mention is that what what do you think distinguishes those experiences from just traveling? Like usually when people nowadays when they want to travel, they, it's just a little maybe 2-week trip or a week trip to, do something. But with travelers, it's more of like an everyday life experience. So what do you think distinguishes those happiness feelings, those feelings of being able to just go out and do whatever? Because in a way, I could go on a 2-week trip and I guess make friends, but do you think it would be the same level of enjoyment if I had this sort of like ability to do it whenever I would want to? Like, would it make the process go slower? Because I know that, I'll wake up here tomorrow probably, and I can make friends, I guess, tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But I think travelers have to, what is the oomph? Like, I guess the drive,
Well, it disarms you. It forces you to adapt to your situation. Basically, it's like, oh shit, here I am now. I gotta make the best of things.
Right, I guess I gotta do it.
And I'm someone with autism. I'm an introvert. And I literally cannot be anything but an introvert because of my mental conditions. But even then, I was still able to get out there, explore, and really see the world anew.
I love that. I love to hear that. That is amazing. I think I'm a pretty extroverted person, but I think I have introverted ways, which we've talked about a little bit here and there.
Yeah, but I definitely do think that's part of being a traveler, is really just it's disarming. So you have to adapt to every new situation you come across, the new people you come across, and the new world that you're gonna build for yourself.
I think with traveling, though, the thing that I feel like most people, like, let's say I'm listening to this, or I'm basically someone listening to this in a position similar to my own, maybe a new traveler, or maybe someone that wants to get into traveling more. I think there's fear a little bit with traveling because you never know, one, when it's going to end and what you're going to have left after you're finished. I think the experience is enough, in my eyes, is something that would be beneficial. But in a reality sense, what do you do when you feel like the journey has ended? Or if not ended, what do you do if you want to go back to normal life? Do you stay where you are? Do you start a new life there? Do you travel somewhere else? What do you do?
Well, it's the reason we have the term drifter, isn't it? Being a traveler does kind of make you a drifter.
A drifter a little bit,
Yeah, it makes you kind of have to go from place to place. So I definitely do think that when it comes to settling down and forming your roots, being a traveler gives you the ability to adapt especially well to your new scenarios. It makes you creative. It makes you... What is that train?
Yeah, I know. We're here. Give us a moment, everyone. We feel like we're hearing a train. Or somebody with a really heavy rolling cart on the above floor.
You know what? That would make sense.
I think that might be it. But as we were saying.
So I definitely do think when it comes to that traveling, the end of travels, because that has to end eventually. I mean, you get old, you want to have family, have children.
Yeah.
I personally really think the best part is that you've seen what is possible. So for you in this new life you're living, there's nothing that really is holding you back.
I see. Because I guess when you think about if you really put it in that perspective, traveling gives you the opportunity to see everything that can be. There is so many things that I think our culture tries to tell us, like, you can be anything. But how do you know you can be anything when you don't know what anything really is?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like I talk about wanting to leave my home state, my hometown, my home country all the time, but I don't know what is out there. Why would I want to leave? Why would I want to leave if I don't know what I would be leaving to get into? For me, it's more of curiosity for me to understand what there is, but the whole idea of traveling really centers around the fact that you will be able to see things that you never experienced before, going to places you've never been before, and eventually, maybe one of these times, one of these years, you'll pick one of those places that you like so much, and you might want to stay there. But another fear I can see with that is, when, in your opinion, when do you think is, how do I put it? Not when is the time to stop, but when is there a point where you feel like I have to be rooted within the typical society of not a traveler? You know, I think it's rare to be a traveler. It's rare for other people to get into that. But when, I guess it's a strange question I'm asking. When do you call it quits? Yeah.
I mean, that's something that differs with every person. Personally, I'm probably going to call it quits. Maybe not even when I get a wife, but maybe when I have children, I want to be a bit more settled. Because it's really about, it's not just, travel for most people is kind of seen as an escape. And it is an escape to some degree or another. But when it comes to me, travel is really about, I know broadening your horizons is a very generic term, but it really is about, not necessarily just opening your mind to the new world, but about becoming a part of it, about seeing where opportunity lies for you, where you can apply yourself and make the most of your life.
Yeah, I really like the way that you had said that, because it reminds me of my college thesis about identity and wanderlust when it comes to travel. And I wrote it basically trying to figure out if you can create an identity of travel. And after doing the research, my conclusion was you couldn't, because it's almost like at the end of the day, I put it this way. My conclusion was you can and you can't at the same time. You can tell someone, I'm a traveler. I loved doing this when I traveled. I enjoyed doing this, and it in a way has shaped me for who I am. But when you take that part away, who are you? And I think that's the hardest thing to try to put into words. It gives me so many ideals of like, philosophy that I don't even have the capacity of knowing how to put into words. But I will say that traveling, it can open your mind to a lot of different things. But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty of what is my life without travel, it's very hard to figure out. It's something that, I don't know. I think, like you said, when you are ready to settle down and think of like kids and stuff like that, is that the time when people should stop traveling? Not traveling necessarily, but is that when becoming a traveler is just kind of out of reach?
I don't think it's necessarily an out of reach thing as much as it is no, it's definitely not an out of reach thing, because everyone can travel anytime technically.
Yeah, we have free will. Right.
I think it's about what you get out of travel. There's increasingly diminished returns once you add in other factors. Because suddenly traveling at my age might just mean, staying away, leaving family for a bit, which isn't that big a deal.
Yeah.
Everyone does it.
Right, everyone has those.
But if I travel, that means, if I travel by myself, that means leaving a wife. If I travel when I have kids, that might mean leaving kids behind.
Mm-hmm.
If I travel with my wife, that means I have to get someone for my kids and constantly worry about my kids.
Yeah.
If I were to like really start a career in travel, that means that I have to worry about my career when I get back. Because
right.
you really can't do that.
Mm-hmm. It's really strange. It's difficult. I think when you start thinking about traveling versus being a traveler, the line between the two, they can intersect, but it's really hard for what happens after you cross those lines a little bit, because travelers might have a case of wanderlust a little bit, because they traveled and maybe might not have that place to settle in quite so far. Whereas traveling might also feel like there's a case of wanderlust because they will never be able to experience what it's like to travel beyond their means, because maybe they're, maybe they don't have the ability to do it right now. Maybe they have kids, or maybe they're stuck in work life and they can't see the world as they wanted to. Money, financially, finding programs and things like that. It's so many intercrossing ways between the two of them that make it frustrating. But since we're closing up a little bit here, what's it called? The last thing I kind of want to bring up is talking about a little bit about your book, and what you might want to give us a little sneak peek about what you wanted to, what you're going to be sharing when it comes out.
So my book's going to be written in 3 perspectives: Spencer the planner, Spencer the traveler, and Spencer the traveled.
I love it.
Basically, what I want to write about is sort of these concurrent perspectives where if something's happening, then it's because of how I feel at the time or what I'm going through. Like, for example, let's say I planned out a route my current route's like down the Adriatic, for example, to go to Greece. What if during my travels I decided, well, you know what? I'm actually going to go to Serbia and in Bulgaria rather than going down through Albania and Montenegro.
Yeah. You're like, I'm going to change it up a little bit just because I feel like it.
Yeah, and I talk about why I changed the route and what I'm feeling in the moment. And then for the traveled, I'm going to talk about, like, was it that big a difference? What did I miss out on? If I miss out on something, then was it worth the experiences I received in exchange?
Wow, that's a really cool idea.
Chapter 1, there's going to be all, straightforward chapters. It's not going to be like part 1, part 2, part 3.
Yeah.
It's rather all the chapters are going to be interweaving with these different perspectives.
I love that, because it's almost like your own little travel journal that people would be able to read and understand what goes through the process of the mind of a traveler. It's really cool.
Yeah, almost from like sort of perspective, these 3 people talking to each other.
Yeah, I love it. That's really cool. We're going to keep you guys updated with Spencer's book. Hopefully we'll have a release date soon once everything is getting closer into finishing. And trust me, there's a long ways away, but I'm so excited to hear the great news. And anything last you want to talk about today, Spencer?
Well, I just want to tell everyone to prepare to travel, get ready now. Because the earlier that you can prepare for travel, the better.
Yeah. We're starting a new year, guys. So with that, I'm hoping that we can be beneficial to you guys in some way, telling you a little bit our experiences, me coming in with a not super advanced way of thinking, but hopefully that gives you guys a perspective of how you might be feeling getting ready to travel, with Spencer being a little more of an expert in the field of what it's like to travel. I really think having our 2 dynamics here is really interesting to some degree and form. I'm sure we're going to have plenty more to talk about, because trust me, food is on the table. That is what I want to talk about soon.
And remember, you can always travel. It's just about figuring out where you want to travel. It's not about figuring out how you travel. It's figuring out where you want to travel.
Yeah, where you want to travel and what you're going to get out of it. That's the biggest thing. I think it's so important to understand where, what, and why. I think another thing we'll probably talk about in the future is gender differences. I think that's one thing that we'll probably focus on.
We've cracked so many jokes about this.
We have, literally.
I like to say, like, you get your drinks paid for, but I can wander around at night.
Exactly, right? We've cracked so many jokes about this that I think we'll probably put it into a better perspective in a future episode. But yeah, I think that's all we really have time for today. So we just... Oh, go ahead, Spencer.
Oh, no, I was just saying, agreeing with you.
Oh, yeah. That's all we have really time for today. And I want to say thank you guys so much for listening to the Nina's Network podcast. This is, I don't know what episode this is. But yeah, we'll see you guys in our next episode.
All right,
bye,
peace.
guys.